Welcome to the Business Spotlight. I'm here today with Yaqoob. He is the founder and managing director of i3 Media. I'm really grateful. Thank you very much for spending some time with me today.
Thank you for the opportunity. Looking forward to it.
Me too. Me too. Some lessons from 20 years of business life. So let's give the viewers a little bit of context to start with. Tell us a little bit about i3 Media, your company.
I don't know. How far back do you want to go? We've been in business now for sort of 19 years, so almost 2 decades. Typical, I say typical, but it's a kind of mum's front room startup,
Right.
and kind of incubated from there. But yeah, my history with business starts back at school, where I started my first sort of foray into business, which was kind of selling computer bits and bobs, which then led to building computers, selling them. A few years at university, coming back, setting up another company with my lovely brothers. And then i3 Media pretty much was a spin-off from that. Yeah, it was one of those which right place, right time. And kind of, I think, the get up and go attitude, really. Yeah, so, we started out as a software stroke web design company, and then introduced our digital marketing services. And fast forward to today, we are just shy of 50 full-time staff, and we work with some fantastic, amazing brands and charities around the world.
Fabulous. And I know that companies like yours take a lot of time and effort and ability to get beyond the 5-year point, which is when most businesses fail. So what is it in particular that makes i3 Media different from all the others? Because as a customer, I've got thousands of agencies I could choose. What's different about yours?
I would say the financial modeling has been, if you were to kind of say what's the single most successful point of where we are today, and what's got us through the 2008 recession, obviously the COVID years. Strong financial planning and modeling, and really knowing our target audience, nurturing our clients to make sure we've got long-standing relationships. And naturally, without saying what it is, but yeah, I think producing products which clients absolutely love and love to use.
Yeah. That's good. So one of the things I saw when I was researching you was this little note on your LinkedIn profile that says one of your philosophies is doing good always. Now, it's quite obvious really what that means, but I was wondering, if I was a customer, practically, what does that mean to me? What does that philosophy do for me?
Yes, that's quite an interesting one, actually, because I did sit down sort of 6 months ago and sort of thought, okay, we constantly are interviewing people, and I hear a lot of people come from companies, not agencies, but could be sort of a wide variety of companies, and you tend to hear stories about the culture, the staff, the sort of people they work with, and the clients they work with. We've kind of always had this philosophy, which is treat our clients and staff with respect, and they will naturally give us the best possible outcomes that we would need. So yes, we have a big part of what we do is working with charities and within the charity sector, but kind of doing good always as a phrase was really inherently about how we treat people around us, and how we treat our staff, how we treat our clients, and how we deal with challenges, because naturally in businesses, your next challenge is round the corner.
Always.
So yeah, that's what that kind of alludes to.
I like it. And so let me just take you back to 2004. You're just out of university, or you've been out for a little while. You've got your various things going on. What was the entrepreneurial spark moment? When was the moment where you thought to yourself, you know what, I am not going to go and get a job with somebody else. I'm going to start a company and I'm going to create jobs. What was it for you? Where did that come from?
Yeah, it's when they say you fall into things, and you kind of make your own luck. I think essentially where i3 came from was really an interesting story. So as I said, I started a company with my two other brothers, older brothers, called IT Solutions. So I built and sold computers. My other brother was a network engineer, and my other brother was a software developer. That lasted for about a year or so,
Good
and we
team.
put these signs up outside the building we'd rented at the time,
Yeah.
and it had web design on there. Kind of never really built a website before that.
Mhm.
And actually, the day we decided that kind of we were going to follow our own routes, we were just sat in a takeaway in the town centre of Peterborough, and one of the chaps wanted a website building, the owner of the establishment.
Right.
And he said, "Oh, he'd seen our boards," and he said, "Oh, you build websites," and that was it. To be honest,
Off you go.
kind of, yeah.
Wow.
I think I charged him £250. It took me 6 weeks to develop, but it was a catalyst. It was
Okay.
actually creating something that so much went into, and actually now seeing this realized online.
Mm.
And truth be told, being, I think, one of the biggest successes for i3's startup was being kind of the only Asian within a community where websites were relatively new.
Got
So
it. Got it.
Asian business owners needed to go digital, and they needed someone to trust.
Yeah.
And here I was, and yeah, that's pretty much what the catalyst was. And then commandeering my lovely mum's front room for the next year. So
And just thinking back then, I was always find it interesting to explore when people start businesses. Sometimes they're thinking about the first customer or the first, major project that they've got to do. Did you set yourself any goals back then? Were you thinking big at that point?
truth be told, I mean, it's in what you say and do. I always started a company, although it was just me.
Mm.
When we were talking to clients, it's always we. That mindset of,
Nice.
yes, we'll look at that, or we'll look at that. And I think that level of mindset shift from people saying, "Look, I'll do that," to "we'll do that." On the
Mm.
other end of the phone, when you're talking to a client, it just naturally sounds like they've got a team, right?
That's
Um,
great.
did we set any goals? Truth be told, no. It was just a case of, look, let's see where this takes me. And yeah, there are a few real key indicators to start off with. I mean, once I'd launched that first site, um, within 2 weeks, I had 8 projects on the table, and I was like, 6 weeks a project. And so I put an advert out online through one of the websites, and managed to get some freelancers based overseas. One of them actually is still with me and is
Okay.
a director in one of my
Yeah.
companies. Um, and yeah, very very quickly, within a couple of years, we were working with the likes of Autoglass, Grand Designs, Britain's Next Top Model,
Yeah.
the MOD.
Yes.
Um, what's the phrase? Punching above our waist
Yeah.
comes
Yeah.
to mind. Um, but yeah, that's essentially. I won't say I sat down with a business plan and said, right, this is year one, year two, year three. It's never really been my style,
No.
um, but it's panned out. So
Yeah. Yeah. It has, and you built a big team. You said 50 employees on the payroll, so that got me thinking about you as a leader, because companies like yours don't survive unless they've got strong leadership. What's your leadership style, leadership philosophy?
autonomy,
Mm-hmm.
um, allowing people, hiring people who are better than you, and
Nice.
allowing them to get on with what they need to do.
Yeah.
I think that's essentially what. Um, yeah, even to this day, when we're interviewing, and our sort of company's been departmentalized sort of last 6 years or so, decision making was offloaded from myself.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, at an operational level, it's still with me, but at a departmental level, it is now, the autonomy has been given to individuals.
Mm.
And yeah, I'd like to say a majority of decisions are okay, are correct. Still doesn't stop directors and leaders, poking their nose in when they're not wanted. But yeah, I would say allowing people to pretty much get on with their own professions and
Mm.
bringing their expertise to the table.
Mm. Let me just explore that because one of the things I find with my business owner clients is that one of the most challenging things for them mentally is to let go of some of that responsibility. As you were going through that process, was there anything that happened where you just thought, in the end, I'm just going to have to let go, or did you have another tactic?
I think when you're looking to scale, and we look at i3 Media as an agency, as a digital agency, but I think we're very entrepreneurial as a company, as individuals with it, because we work with a lot of startups. We naturally have to be able to explore opportunities, and we then end up doing that for ourselves as well. But yeah, I think to scale a business, you've got to have a very, very strong team who you can rely on, who you can trust to make decisions. The point at which really, again, it's an interesting one, but I think someone requested some money to take the team out for a bite to eat.
Yes.
And it wasn't a huge amount. And I just thought to myself, why am I still having to sign that off?
Yes.
And that was pretty much the catalyst to say, right, okay, you know what? We've got key people who are quite competent and capable. So yeah, that was very much the focus of departmentalizing and freeing me from the day to day. Yeah.
So this is funny in a way because there's a lot of food involved, right? So you were in a takeaway when you decided to start the business, and you were asked to sign off food when you decided to let go and departmentalize and give people autonomy, which is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
So let's just
it wasn't planned that way, by the way. So.
No. Maybe there's another food analogy to come. I don't know, but let's talk about how you bring people in then, because one of the things that I know my clients, the business owners I speak to, struggle with nowadays is recruitment. So when you're bringing people into the team, or when your staff are bringing people into the team, what do you look out for first in somebody?
Okay, so that shift has changed massively over the years. When we started out, it was all about cultural fit. It was about, when there's 4 or 5 of us, are we going to be able to have a laugh? Are we going to be able to play a pool together? Are we going to, go out and do some sport or whatever? As we grew as a business and as our client base grew, that level of specialism and responsibility crept in. That was expected from our clients as a service provider. And then we started looking at specialisms. Okay, so if we need an individual to come in to do this job, but we were still of the mindset that we like the person. If they aren't great at that job, we can always move them around the business. Which I think a lot of companies still hire in that particular way. The last sort of 3 to 5 years, I would say, it's been very much focused. Okay, we need an individual to do this role, and we need to hire until we find the individual who can do that role. So although we look at cultural fit, which is really important because within the Peterborough office here, we're based on an open plan, single floor setting. But yeah, the key thing I would say that right now, the way we recruit is really the specialisms that we need to allow us to scale to the next level.
Yeah. And I think it's a real mark of a company. It's a real mark of a team. It's a real mark of the leadership in a team when you look at how people behave when things go wrong. What's the sort of principle in i3 for, right, something hasn't gone quite according to plan? What's the attitude? What's the approach there?
Always own up to it. We are a technology-based company, which means we're reliant on other technology providers. So our websites, we design them, we build them, we're in full control at that level. Once they get deployed and hosted, we're now dependent on our hosting providers, who are huge conglomerates such as Google, Amazon Web Services, and so on and so forth. So naturally in technology, stuff does go wrong. So our philosophy within i3 is, first and foremost, let's say what the issue is, and then figure out, is it our problem? Is it created by a third party? And then naturally go back to the clients and say, okay, either hands up, yes, it shouldn't have happened, or like we had recently, only a couple of days ago, one of our third-party suppliers had an outage, which affected a couple of sites, only for a short amount of time. But we were able to respond to that and say, okay, here's the outcome, here's what took place, and here's the resolution.
Yeah. So, open and transparent, really, but not looking around the room to try and blame somebody, which is often what kind of behaviors I see sometimes.
Yeah.
All right. So it's part of your job, I guess, as the leader and the team that you've got in position around you to create new leaders. How do you spot and bring on the talent in your company to bring them up?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, I've always had a philosophy of grow within first and then hire people from externals.
Yeah.
It's been largely successful. I mean, I won't say it's always been the case. I mean, we have had to, over the years, hire people, and naturally right now, whilst we scale, we are having to look further afield to see whether we can fill certain gaps within the organization. But yeah, we provide a lot of support to our sort of upcoming staff. It's all built on longevity. When we take on people, we are looking at 3 to 5 years, and we do mention that in interviews.
Yeah.
We are expecting you to be part of the organization for 3 to 5 years, and we will support you. If I was to say my longest standing, let's say partner, sort of employee would be 19 years. We've then had 16 years, we've had 15 years. Right now, we've got someone who's been here 13 years. 10s are quite common at I3. And many at 5. So we tend to we do keep hold of good people and good talent.
So that's got to come from the top, as that kind of loyalty, that kind of commitment, the people who are going to stay and work in a company. Give us an insight into your secret sauce for creating an environment in particular where people are like, I'm really happy to be here after 10, 13, 16, 19 years.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because we've kind of, the people we've had so far and who have stuck around. I mean, it's a cliche to say it's like a family, right? But it all depends on how the business scales. Like a few years ago, I wanted to introduce our social media department, a dedicated social department. And we knew that there was going to be some sort of rotation. You can never naturally bring 3 or 4 people into a department and they gel immediately. We then scaled other areas. We're now currently scaling our business development side of the business. And I think it is just purely, if I was to just say, and I kind of say this across the board, is treat people the way you want to be treated, right? And if you can get that right, you don't always get it right. Look, at the end of the day, I've employed hundreds of people over my time in business and various businesses I've been involved in. And sometimes it just doesn't fit, and sometimes you just can't fix something that's not gonna work. So, but most of the time, I think we've been very, very successful in allowing people the level of growth, the level of freedom to voice their opinions. And I think people just want to work somewhere where they can turn up to work, have a good laugh, and do the best they can.
Yeah. And you mentioned, I mean, there's some studies and research around the 3 things that employees want, and they are autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And you highlighted that at the beginning. You said, you try to give people autonomy. So clearly, that's part of the way it works there. So just thinking about the next few years, then you've been around for 19. You're going to break through your 20th anniversary, which I imagine there'll be a celebration of some kind. What's coming next for I3?
So right now we've been working on some behind the scenes projects. They are products as such, and we are honing in on the charity sector. There are certain sectors right now who still haven't really adopted. It's really weird to say, but they really haven't adopted digital as well as they should have. So there's a lot of digital transformation projects we're working on, but largely I think with the changes in AI gaining pace, our industry, as much as any industry, will be disrupted.
Yes.
So from our perspective, it's about how do we take the opportunities to bring in these technologies rather than being fearful of them. How do we provide a level of autonomy or time for our staff to see how these AI models or big languages can be adopted within their workspaces to make them more efficient, as opposed to worrying about how they're going to effectively take over jobs, which, given the opportunity, they naturally probably will. So from our point of view, the big sort of growth areas for us is continue doing what we're doing, but really focusing on products which are going to make life easier for businesses who haven't, or industries who haven't quite yet mastered how digital can be effective for them.
So I'm coming up towards the end. I'm just thinking about the lessons that business owners can learn from you, because there are many that are, decades behind you in terms of the journey. So let's just try and frame it this way, if I can. If you were to go back now to 2003 and have a chat with the younger what kind of advice would you give him that would stand him in good stead when he's starting a business and building it the way you have?
That's a loaded question.
It's a big question, isn't it? I know.
Yeah, that is a big question. What advice? Move fast and don't dwell. I would probably say. They always say fail fast, and I think that resonates with things which allow you to kind of quickly trial things and fail on things, improve things, fail on things, improve things. So I would probably say that would be one thing that we don't do enough of. I think we do potentially continue down the road when we actually know, kind of, let's just sort of change things up a bit. So yeah, I would probably say that would be one thing that I would probably tell myself to do a lot more. Just take more opportunities as they come.
Brilliant advice. If I was a young business owner listening to that and knowing what you'd achieved by doing that, then I think that would be a great lesson for me. So just one final question then. Obviously, the business is going to grow. You're talking about moving into those sectors that haven't really got digital transformation done yet, and exploring what AI can do for you and the team and things like that. As the business grows, how does Az have to grow now? Are what's going to have to change with you as the business gets even more mature?
I think the biggest challenges I have at the moment is the sort of second phase of letting go, as you mentioned earlier. As a business, we have been very successful. As I said, we've got through some pretty challenging times over the last sort of 20 odd years, or almost 20 years. And now it is really a case of essentially allowing sort of people within the team to take a bigger leadership role, create that middle management structure, which then allows, again, people say you should work on the business as opposed to in it. And just, giving me a little bit more time to maybe look at opportunities and directions that I three would really, really be able to make an impact on the staff we employ and the future growth of that. But also, how can we now take the opportunities to grow our clients by use of the emerging technologies that naturally they would need to take their next step. So that's kind of, I would say, my challenges which are coming up in the next couple of years.
That's great. That's great. Now, I know you're tight for time, so I don't want to take any more of it. I could talk for another hour easily about how you've grown your business and how that happened. But I think that's a half an hour packed with lessons for business owners. So let me just say a very sincere thank you again for joining me on the Business Spotlight. Much appreciated.
Very much appreciated, and thank you for having me.